Information is one of those words we use constantly, but rarely stop to define. We say a book contains information, a text message sends information, a graph reveals information, and a strange sound in the night gives us information that something may be happening nearby. But information is not the paper, the pixels, the sound wave, or the ink. It is the meaning that can be drawn from some pattern, signal, or representation. At its most basic level, information is something that has the power to inform. It reduces confusion, points to a possibility, or helps an observer interpret what is going on. A footprint in mud, a blinking warning light, a melody, a DNA sequence, and a sentence can all carry information, even though they are made of very different things. What connects them is that they are not purely random. They contain patterns that can be sensed, interpreted, and used. A key idea is that information is different from knowledge. Information is meaning available through interpretation. Knowledge is what a mind or system builds after understanding and integrating that meaning. Imagine seeing the number 37 on a screen. By itself, it is a representation. If you know it is today's temperature in degrees Celsius, it becomes information about the weather. If you understand that 37 degrees is dangerously hot for a marathon, and you decide to postpone the race, that information has become practical knowledge. The same data can mean different things depending on context. A red light can mean stop at an intersection, recording in a studio, danger in a lab, or low battery on a device. Information always depends on a relationship between a pattern and an interpreter capable of assigning meaning to it. Information can appear in many forms. Some forms are discrete, meaning they are built from separate symbols. Written language is discrete. Letters combine into words, words into sentences, and sentences into larger arguments. Digital information is also discrete, built from bits that can be arranged into numbers, characters, images, software, or video. Other forms are more continuous. A human voice rises and falls smoothly. A vinyl record stores sound as a physical groove. A painting uses gradients of color and shape. Music, photographs, currents, temperature changes, and radio waves can all carry information in ways that are not simply one symbol after another. The form matters for storage and transmission, but the deeper principle is the same. A pattern in some medium can be interpreted as carrying meaning. Because information depends on interpretation, it is often processed in layers. Written text is a simple example. At one level, individual marks on a page are recognized as letters. At the next level, letters combine into words. Words combine into phrases, phrases into sentences, and sentences into a larger idea. Each layer uses information from the previous layer and creates information for the next. Digital systems work in a similar way. Electrical states become bits. Bits become numbers or characters. Those characters become commands, images, records, or messages. A video file, for example, is not just a pile of bits. It is a structured pattern that software interprets through many layers until a viewer sees movement, color, and meaning. Information is rarely just received once. It is transformed, interpreted, and reinterpreted. This layered process is why raw data and useful information are related but not identical. Data is often the structured material from which information can be derived. A restaurant may collect data from every customer order, time, table number, dishes purchased, price, and whether the customer ordered dessert. At first, these records are just entries in a system. But after analysis, they can reveal information: which dishes are most popular, which items are ignored, what sells best on weekends, or whether a discount increases demand. From there, the restaurant can build knowledge and act on it by changing the menu, adjusting staff schedules, or ordering ingredients more efficiently. Data becomes valuable when patterns are identified, interpreted, and connected to decisions. One powerful way to understand information is to connect it with uncertainty. If you already know something will happen, being told that it happened gives you almost no new information. But if several outcomes are possible, a message that tells you which one occurred is informative. A fair coin flip has two equally likely outcomes, heads or tails. Before the flip is revealed, there is uncertainty. When someone tells you the result, that uncertainty is resolved. In information theory, the amount of information is connected to how surprising or uncertain an event was beforehand. A rare event carries more information than a predictable one because it removes more uncertainty. Hearing that the sun rose this morning tells you little. Hearing that snow fell in a desert city may tell you much more. The standard unit of information is the bit. A bit can be thought of as the amount of information needed to distinguish between two equally likely possibilities. In the case of one fair coin flip, learning the result gives one bit of information, because it cuts the uncertainty in half. Two fair coin flips have four possible outcomes: heads heads, heads tails, tails heads, and tails tails. Learning the exact outcome gives 2 bits of information. This may sound abstract, but it is the foundation of digital communication and computing. Every digital image, song, document, and app is represented through enormous sequences of bits. Each bit is simple, but together they can encode complex structures, from a single letter to an entire movie library. Information theory also explains why compression is possible. Many messages contain redundancy, meaning they repeat patterns or include more detail than is necessary to reconstruct the message accurately. If a file contains the same color across a large region of an image, it may be inefficient to store the color value for every single pixel separately. A compression method can describe the pattern more compactly. Text works the same way. Common words, repeated phrases, and predictable structures can be encoded more efficiently than random characters. But there are limits. Once redundancy has been removed, the remaining information cannot be compressed forever without losing something. There is a theoretical boundary, an optimal size determined by how much genuine uncertainty or pattern remains in the data. Information can travel across space through communication. A spoken sentence moves as pressure waves in air. A phone call converts sound into electrical or digital signals and sends it across networks. A satellite broadcasts encoded patterns over vast distances. But information can also travel through time by being stored. A clay tablet, a handwritten letter, a hard drive, and cloud storage all preserve patterns so that someone later can interpret them. Storage and communication are closely related, both require encoding information into a form that survives long enough and clearly enough to be decoded. Sometimes information is also encrypted, meaning it is intentionally transformed so that only someone with the right key can interpret it. Encryption does not destroy information, it controls who can extract the meaning. Signals do not have to be human-made to carry information. Nature is full of patterns that inform. Tree rings can reveal past climate conditions. Fossils carry information about ancient life. A fever tells us something about the body's state. The position of stars helped navigators understand location. Even an animal's tracks in snow can serve as a message, not because the animal intended to communicate, but because the tracks preserve a pattern caused by its movement. Information does not always require intention. It requires an observable pattern that can reduce uncertainty for an interpreter. This is why information connects to perception, representation, communication, control, education, meaning, and understanding. It sits at the crossroads between the physical world and the systems that interpret it. The digital age changed the scale of information storage. For most of human history, information was stored in physical and analog forms: memory, speech, carvings, manuscripts, printed books, photographs, magnetic tape, and film. Digital storage translated more and more of the world's records into bits. By the early 2000s, digital storage capacity overtook analog storage capacity, marking a major shift in how civilization preserves and processes information. A scientific estimate later suggested that by 2007, the overwhelming majority of technologically stored information was already digital. This mattered because digital information can be copied, searched, compressed, encrypted, analyzed, and transmitted at extraordinary speed. It made information not only easier to store, but easier to transform into new forms of knowledge and action. So what is information, in the deepest sense? It is not merely data, and it is not automatically knowledge. It is the meaningful content that can be derived from patterns, signals, observations, or representations. It can be encoded in letters, bits, images, sounds, temperatures, gestures, or natural traces. It can reduce uncertainty, guide decisions, reveal structure, and connect one moment to another across time and space. But information always needs interpretation. Without a system capable of reading the pattern, the message remains potential rather than understood. From a coin flip to a library, from a restaurant order to a satellite signal, information is the bridge between raw patterns and meaningful understanding. It is how the world becomes readable. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.